Hey, what's going on, guys? So this is a more in-depth video about my trombone controller, I guess, for Trombone Champion. So I started out after the game launched and thinking, "Oh, this is cool. What can I do to make it more? What are people not doing that could be done?" And so I was like, "Well, play with a real trombone." Um, so I set out to do that. The platform I'm using is Arduino. I have an Arduino right here. If you don't know what an Arduino is, it's the blue thing in the middle of the screen. It's this guy. The Pro Micro is the one I'm using. Just because I don't need a whole ton of inputs and outputs. It's perfectly suited to doing what I'm doing. And it's it works. So let me explain real quick how it works. On the backside is this sensor. It is a time of flight sensor. And basically what happens is one of these two squares sends out a beam of light, laser, and it bounces off something and it returns to the square. That counts basically or measures how long time it takes between those two events, the send and the receive. It divides it by 2 since you are going somewhere and then coming back. And then it takes that time and multiplies it, divides the speed of light by that to get a distance, basically. Divides the speed of light? It does some math of the speed of light. If you know the speed of light, you know how far light can go in however microseconds it takes, to go from one sensor to an object and back. So basically that is sent to the Arduino. The Arduino also communicates to that button right here. It also communicates to the switch, which is buried underneath all this because I didn't clean it up. It also communicates with this pressure sensor right here. And basically what it does is it equates that distance, the time basically that it takes for that beam of light to hit my hand and come back into a number. And it sends that to the computer. It also clicks the mouse when there is pressure sensed in the pressure sensor or when the button is pressed. You could do either one. And when that toggle switch is flipped, it stops sending that data to the computer so that you can use your mouse as normal. How it does this is, like I said, it sends that distance to the computer. In my case, I actually do multiply the distance by 4 in millimeters by 4 and then subtract 300 from it just to get the scale a little bit more convenient for me to play. And a companion Python script on my computer receives that and translates that to a coordinate on the computer, which I will show you later. But first, maybe it would be worthwhile showing exactly how that works. So you can see I'm moving my hand here. You can probably see the distance moved on the other camera. And that's how it works. Basically, the further you move your hand away, the further the lower it moves the mouse on the screen because I have it reversed. But it's that simple. It literally just, you don't have to move the slide. You could just move your hand, but in the spirit of using the trombone to play, you use that. That is part of a little bit longer video, which I can play for you real quick. And okay, this is the first hide me real test, I guess, of this trombone setup here. There's gonna be a little bit of artifacts on the screen because of the way I encode the video. You can see the top right camera there. Way too many wires. I'm gonna pause this. Hang on. All right, sorry about that. I just converted the video so there wasn't any visual artifacts. So I tested out this earlier, and this is the resulting video. So first I'm going to test out the breath controls here. I get a little bit better at it as it goes on, but you can tell I'm not a trumpet player, a trombone player either, by how I'm holding the trombone. I'm a tuba player myself. And so now I'm going to play it with the push button instead of the, I don't know, breath sensor. Not convinced. I'm going to retry it with, the button controls, not the breath control. Better. All right, well, that was the test. As for how it works, the camera at the end is just kind of stuck on with some tape. I have a sensor here. It is I will tell you in case you care, a MPX V7007 pressure sensor. That is hooked up to an Arduino Pro Micro, as well as a switch and a push button and a VL53L1X time of flight sensor. And basically what happens is the time of flight sensor sends out a beam of light. It hits my hand, wherever it is along this ramp here, and it takes that number, multiplies it by 4, subtracts 300, and then sends that to the computer. On the computer side, I have a script, which I can show you right here. This script, it intercepts that message to the computer, and it uses Python to write that value to my vertical mouse position. The switch on the Arduino stops that communication, so if I turn it on, you'll see the numbers move, and now my hand controls the distance that the mouse is moving. You can see the numbers move there. I have it multiplied by 400 to make it a little bit easier to move, just so I'm not pushing my arm so long. It does actually work. Sorry, times 4. It does actually work without that, with a times 2 multiplier. However, I found that I needed to move the trombone back so my arm could reach further out, and then I was hitting my arm with the actual beam of light. I think what I want to do before I do anything crazy is to get a white glove. Maybe if I could find a retro-reflective material, that would be even better, just to have it look at my hand more than my wrist or my sleeve, because as I extend my arm, it starts to catch that, and then I don't actually move out. It actually moves the opposite direction that I want it to. The push button, basically when I push the button in, it clicks the mouse. So if I do this and I push this button, boop, should click the mouse. It doesn't click the mouse when I am in this mode. It should click the mouse. There we go. Clicks the mouse. You can see it move the window. While I'm in the other mode, blowing into the mouthpiece activates the pressure sensor and also clicks. I have, it'll be a little hard to show, a 3D printed piece of plastic that holds the switch and the button, and it's supposed to hold the Arduino, but I actually made the cable a little too short, so I'm going to be changing that. It also has another 3D part here, which the mouthpiece slots into. It slots into where the mouthpiece should go, so I'm not actually pushing any air into the horn. I just have a threaded metal barb that connects to this hose that goes to the pressure sensor. I wish that the pressure sensor was more sensitive. I believe it goes up to 2 or 3 psi, which is pretty crazy to do with your lips, and it also goes to negative, or your breathing. It also goes to negative 2 or 3. So about 250 is ambient air pressure out of 1024, and it senses at 290 when I blow air into it. I don't make a perfect seal on the mouthpiece. Some air is going out from the corners of my mouth just so that I do not hyperventilate. But other than that, that's kind of it. I'm gonna pause the video there. 550, not 250, because it's 1024 is the max, so the middle is half. But anyway, so here's some close-up shots of the actual rig. I will go over the 3D printed parts in a few minutes, so no worries about getting a good view of those. But you can see this is the underside. This is the switch. I only had a dual throw on hand, so that's what I used. Here is the time of flight sensor. Here's the Arduino. Here's the push button, and this is the actual pressure sensor. Let's see. You can see this is the time of flight sensor right here. There's another view. This is one of the 3 printed parts, which like I said, I'll go over. It basically slots into the normal mouthpiece receiver. The mouthpiece slots into that, and this is threaded in the back. Not very well, because ABS is pretty tough and it's hard to thread into it, and I want it to burst, so I kind of, you can see it's almost half cross-threaded. There is this red 1/8 inch tubing, interior tubing, because unfortunately this has an 1/8 inch prong on it, external diameter, and that makes it a little harder to push air into, along with the device being, like I said, meant to measure much higher air pressures. So unfortunately, it's pretty hard to find what I wanted. I mean, I want like one of those sip and puff kind of sensors, like you would get if you maybe you were unable to move your hands and you could still use a computer with it or something like that. Unfortunately, since those are made for medical reasons and built extra, and they can bill a lot because of insurance, they cost a ton. So I did not go for that. I went for this, and it's just a little harder to read from it, but it works. I thought about maybe nipping the top off and getting a bigger tube, but this was like $20, $25 as is, and I kind of didn't want to buy a second one to experiment with. Here it is from the top. You can see the backside of the sensor coming through right here, the mouthpiece, which like I said, I said in the other video that I cut off. This was a trombone that was destined for the scrap pile. It was literally a four parts trombone. And when I bought it, the slide was dinged in. I don't even know if I still have that image. I think I have it on my computer. I'll try and find it while I'm talking, but it was all messed up and bent, and unfortunately I could not save it, which is why it was a 4 parts part. But I put the I basically cut the end of the stocking off. Not the whole stocking, but part of it. Here, I have the picture right here. This is how dented up it was. It was not a circle. I got it pretty close back to a circle, but it was not quite enough. And so like I said, I cut off the top maybe ½ inch, 3/4 of an inch of the stocking just to make it work. Again, this was a 4 parts trombone, so I kind of don't feel bad about ruining it. Think of that as you will. I think I bought it for $30 ish delivered to my apartment, so you get what you pay for, I guess. Another good look at the sensor. Only 3 pins are used: power, ground, and the actual analog output. You can see, let's see, the 3D printed part here. So the 3D printed part, nothing too crazy. And that's it for pictures. So why don't I show you the actual 3D printed parts? So these I mocked up in Fusion 360. You can see this is what they look like. I will turn off these fake trombone parts here so we can see the actual part. This is the one I am using. It is not 100% correct on my horn. This needs to go back a couple millimeters. It should probably be centered right here. So I did have to fix mine a little bit. However, this isn't too crazy. If I step through it, let's see if this will, yeah. You can see what I did to kind of mock this up, except I did it too high, so now it's out of view, but excuse me. That's to grab the other pole. That's to hold the sensor at the bottom. Unfortunately, this is not the best design. It's a little on the weak side. Certain parts of it, like here, did actually break when I was trying to put it together because they're too thin. So it does need to be a bit beefier. I found that out the hard way on my first attempt. This is actually my first, yeah, this is too thin. My first unprinted attempt. This is the first attempt that I printed, which was me trying to thin it down a little bit and make it a little bit more sleeker and looking nice. And it did look very nice, but it was very weak. I mean, if you want to get a sense of scale here, I believe that's what? That's a 6 millimeter diameter hole. So from one side to the other, 6 millimeters. So there's your sense of scale. So you have parts like this, you know, which are what? 2 millimeters thick, 2.062 millimeters. So yeah, they broke. It still worked. I still used it. But I decided, like I said, this is the first one I printed. I decided to revert back to the previous design here just to be a little bit safer. I did get models of all the buttons, so the push button, the switch, the Arduino, and the time of flight sensor. I had intended to mount this here, and I actually made holes for the areas I thought I would use. It turns out it's a little too tight. I think sense of scale really messed me up on this one because I didn't quite, even though I've used these a lot and I know how big they are and I know how big this is, the sense of scale really messed me up and I didn't quite grasp how everything fit. So, you know, you live and learn, I guess. But let me go over the Arduino stuff. So let me open up the IDE here. So this is my code. Can I just do this? Yes. Okay. I'm going to skip through a lot of this just because we don't care about it. I'm going to go over what this basically does. So I used code from Reading Distance of a Laser-Based VL53L1X by Nathan Seidel from SparkFun. They were the ones who wrote the library for and the example code for this device, so I heavily based it off of that. Basically, what we have is include mouse. So we're using the mouse library to click the mouse. So the Arduino actually clicks the mouse, not the companion Python script on the other end. We're including wire so we can talk to the sensor. We're including the sensor's libraries. We are including, that's the sensor for the distance sensor still. We set the push button, so the button to push and click the mouse is on pin 4. The switch is on pin 5. We pretend that the switch starts in a low state, just to state what it is, something. The pressure sensor is on pin analog 3. We're going to pretend that starts at a value of 0, even though it doesn't. And then I ran out of pins and I was kind of lazy. So pin 8, I push high to power the sensor, and pin 9, I push to low to ground the sensor. It only uses 10 milliwatts of power. Milliwatts? No, milliamps of power. So it shouldn't. 20-ish is like the okay-ish limit, I think. Whatever math and I looked up, it seemed to be okay, and it works, so I'm gonna run with it. So our setup, basically, we tell that the sensor pin is an output, the ground for it is an output as well. We digital write the sensor pin high and the ground pin low so that we can power the sensor properly. Wire begin to start the I2C, I believe, communication to anything. We begin serial to talk to the computer, and we begin the distance sensor just to see if it returns a 0, it's good, it's working. We print a fail message if it doesn't. We print a successful image note if we connect to it. We say that the push button is an input, and we pull up on that so that we can ground it. And we say the push button is an input, and we pull up on that so we can ground it as well. And we begin the mouse so that we can use it. We set the distance sensor to short range. This is important because it, A, is a lot faster, and B, is a lot accurate over that shorter range. That's nice because we don't need the whatever 2 meters of distance it can go. We really want to concentrate on that first. Couple hundred centimeters, if that. Distance sensor set ROI, so you can kind of beam steer where it's looking a little bit. So we choose the smallest beam and slightly, I believe, down to the left is what this is. And we start a loop. So we read the push button, we read the switch, and we read the sensor pin just to store those values. If the switch state is low, so if the switch is switched on, basically, we run the rest of the script. If not, it does nothing. It kicks back to this, reads the values again, and checks to see if the switch state has been pushed back to high, as in our switch is off. If it has, it, again, does nothing. If the switch is on in a low state, we do the rest of the code. So if the push button is low, which means we're pushing it, or the sensor is greater than 590, which means we're blowing into it, we check to see if the mouse is pressed. If it is, we do nothing. If it's not, sorry. If not mouse pressed, left, we press it. Otherwise, if the mouse is pressed, release it. So if it's not low, or the value is less than 950, 590, we release it. So if the mouse is pressed, release it. Next, we go to the distance sensor. We start ranging. We check and see if the data is ready. We delay just a tiny bit. It was in the other code. I'm assuming I need it just to give it time to think. Again, it's one. Delay 1 is like so insignificant. And then we store an integer named distance, which is the distance sensor get distance. So we ask how far away it is, and we store it. This clear interrupt and ranging was in the other code. I don't know if I need it, but it's working, so I'm not going to mess with it. And then we just serial print a new line, which is the distance we got from there times 4 minus 300. You can see I haven't properly commented this code because I still have it millimeters times 2. And so what we get is that sent over serial to the Python code that I have here. This Python code, which for some reason I cannot make bigger. No, let me zoom in. No, I can't zoom in. I'll narrate it for you. Import serial, import time, import mouse. I didn't want to format it that way though. Import serial, import time, import mouse. So we import again that serial communication. We import time, and we import the mouse controls so that we can move the mouse. Serial communicate or serial com equals serial.serial. Com6 is where that Arduino connects. Baud rate 9600, and we time out at 1. Serialcom.reset input buffer. Again, that was in the code that they used. I don't want to mess with it. While true, if the serialcom is waiting is greater than 0, so if there is a message trying to come in, line equals serialcom.readline.decode UTF-8, just so that we can read it as a UTF-8. And then we print that line to the screen, and then we move, mouse.move, 200 pixels from the left-hand side of the screen. So I lock the vertical. I lock the horizontal distance. And then the vertical distance is that line that we read before. So it's the exact number that comes off of the Arduino. And what that looks like in action, I will show you in 1 second. Okay, I'm back. So what that looks like is, if I run the Python script, you can see nothing is happening. On the trombone itself, I'm going to flip that switch, which is buried in here because I didn't process things properly, but you can see it is now feeding numbers. And based on where my hand is, you can see the mouse is moving up and down, and those numbers are decreasing or increasing appropriately. And so if you grab a hold and you move the slide, you get, ooh, that's the ceiling. You get a movement on the trombone. Stopping it again is as simple as flipping that switch. That stops the communication, stops the mouse movement at that point. I can move my mouse as normal. Anytime I turn that switch back on, it snaps back to where it needs to be. If you get too close to the sensor, it does go into negatives, but that doesn't matter because when you're holding it, you don't go negative. Even if I rotate my hand all the way towards it, I can get a little bit, but you never do that when you're playing. So you get all the way down to the bottom of the screen, all the way back to the top, and yeah, that's it. Turn that off there. The pressure sensor works as I mentioned before. I'm not going to demonstrate that as I demonstrated earlier. And that interesting to me. I don't know if it's interesting to you, but if you've watched this for half an hour, I would assume that it's mildly interesting. Or you're saying, "What the fuck is he doing? Why would he do it that way?" I did see a couple other people do stuff like this, but It felt overly complicated, maybe. Although I guess this did get kind of complicated. It has 2 input methods and all that, but oh well. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please drop it down below. Check the description. I'm going to be hosting those pictures. Probably the code on GitHub. I'll put the links to those 3D prints on Thingiverse. You would have to edit them yourself. So maybe I will include Fusion 360 files you can edit. Maybe not. You might have to ask me for those if you are really interested. And a link to me playing it, hopefully. I don't know when I'm going to do that, but I will try and stream that. So thank you for watching. I appreciate you spending your time here with me. And I will catch you later. These interaction reminder things get weird, so I know you guys are smart people. You do what you want. I'll catch you later.